All right, we're back. The moment you've all been waiting for. This is one of our most watched live streams, and it's no surprise because we are here with a very special guest. I would like to introduce you. You folks have probably seen online Rolling Flower VT, Rolling Flower Vermont. Now you can see him here in the flesh. I would like to introduce you all. I'll let you introduce yourself since you're the one who's got the courage to come up here, represent this, and talk about what we're talking about. Please, if you want to introduce yourself to the folks.
Great. Hi, everybody. My name is Andrew Burns. I'm the owner of Rolling Flower LLC, a registered corporation in the state of Vermont.
Beautiful. And Andrew, let's get started with kind of the basics. What's your background with the cannabis plant? You can go into as much or as little detail, but kind of what was your background with the plant, and kind of let's talk about let's start with that.
Well, I think my background was as clumsy as a lot of yours out there, with a Sprite can with holes poked in it and a bunch of Mexican brickweed that came from origins unknown, that was probably filled with pesticides and herbicides and a bunch of greed. It's evolved over the years, certainly, into a respected and trusted teacher and plant medicine that I give so much reverence to, and I enjoy sharing with my neighbors.
And so you yourself, you've tried cannabis, you've tried CBD, you've got some familiarity with it. Let's talk about how you decided to get into this, and maybe we can even talk about a specific moment that we shared together.
Sure.
Because I think a lot of this, everything that people in Vermont are doing, a lot of it's informed by what's happening in other states.
Right.
I told this to VT Digger. Nobody out there is making this stuff up. You know, there's a lot of creative people in cannabis, but
right.
What was some of your inspiration, and how were you guided by what you saw in other states?
Definitely squarely, I guess, inspired by a trip that I had the pleasure and privilege of taking to Maine with Heady, Vermont, a while back to visit the AnyCan conference that they have there. And we found ourselves meeting with a delivery provider in the Portland area that brought us some delicious organic flowers that we were able to enjoy responsibly and as adults in a state where cannabis is legal. And
it was a very kind of basic interest. We were out on the weekend. We had been at the NECAN Portland show. Highly recommend you guys check that out.
Yeah.
In October, actually. Awesome dinner at Liquid Riot. That was amazing.
Yes, Liquid Riot was amazing. The pork belly at Liquid Riot melts in your mouth. But if you're ever in Portland, go there.
We're like many other people, we're out enjoying a night on the town, and we're like, all right, night's winding down. It's legal in Maine, how do we get it?
Yeah.
Like everybody else.
We were at a cannabis convention all day,
right.
And we didn't have any cannabis.
Right, we did not, yeah, exactly. We couldn't buy any cannabis at the convention,
yeah.
Just like all of ours, because it's not for sale. But, so we did what probably a lot of people do, go on the internet, go on Craigslist.
Yeah.
And I think when we were on there were a fair amount of websites and services, and they looked kind of legit.
Yeah.
And I could see kind of, maybe talk about when you were meeting this person, who I guess would be kind of your counterpart in Maine. You can name the company or not. What kind of questions were you asking, and what made you think that this is something that could be done here in Vermont that would make sense?
Well, I mean, I was speaking with him kind of about what his experience was in that delivery business, and he was very, I guess, relaxed about it. He hadn't had any shady dealings with anyone. He seemed very comfortable, very helpful, knowledgeable about his products. And I walked away from it being very impressed with his professionalism, and I wished that Vermont had something like that right away.
Right, and I think that once a lot of us figured out what the writing on the wall was going to be back in January, and the kind of legalization that we were going to have, that was the first question. It was like the law passed, and then the next day, how am I going to get it?
Yeah.
Right, and I don't think the public paid some attention to this, but there's a practical sort of need.
Right.
And I want to talk a little bit about sort of what your experience has been thus far, because you put it out there, kind of first for everybody to see on social media. And so I want to know, what kind of demand are you getting? Are people just blowing up your phone all the time? Like, we're here in Chittenden County, we can reveal that, right? But
yeah,
what's the demand been? I mean, is this really in that much demand?
I couldn't fill the need in Chittenden County if there was 15 of me. It's amazing. I can't even have the business phone on for more than 5 minutes without it just getting completely overwhelmed. We talk with one delivery client, and while we're on the phone with that client, we get 15 to 20 other calls from people trying to connect with us. And we can't fill the need. It's people are getting mad at me and leaving Rolling Flower negative reviews because they're not able to get in touch with us. And
right.
Folks, I'm really sorry. I wish I had 1,000 hours in every day to reach out to all of you. But we don't carry over the limit, and there's only so many hours in the day, so that goes pretty quickly.
Right. And so let's talk about kind of how this works. So somebody learns about the service, calls you if they're able to get through or schedule an appointment. Sort of, what do you set up with them? What are the expectations? And then more importantly, tell us about the experiences, and if you've worked with Rolling Flower, drop a comment in. But, I guess, what can people expect when they call you? I mean, you're clearly professional, not like a super scary individual.
Yeah, I don't wear this on deliveries, but
it might not be a bad idea.
I'm not wearing a Grateful Dead shirt either. I love the Grateful Dead, but
right. So I mean, people see this online. First question: what are people asking for? What do they want the most? Is it flour? Is it vape cartridges? Is it edibles? Like, what's the market? You've got a better idea than anybody.
Yeah. It's varied, and I don't know if my client base so far for the delivery service that I offer is indicative of the cannabis scene in Chittenden County on the whole, but I can tell you that 98% of my clients are around 50 years old. They live in a nice house. They have their shit together. They're a small business owner. They're a parent. They're your neighbor, and they're not getting high and driving around. They're looking for some relief and something to slow the momentum of a long, hard working day. And they're looking for someone to, I guess, let them feel safe doing that.
And I think that kind of that intimacy is that's a big part of the service, because I think a lot of people people got to be pretty scared.
Yeah.
Are they relieved or surprised when you kind of show up? And
well, my very first delivery client was on the morning of the first, and I arrived to our scheduled meeting point, and I looked in the car, and it was a man in his mid to late 60s who, when I walked over to him and began speaking with him, he was shaking like a leaf. He was terrified of me. He thought that I was a law enforcement officer that was going to hurt him physically and take away his liberty. That the whole thing was a setup.
Right.
And as soon as we established that I was not there to hurt him, I was in fact there to help him relieve his own stresses, he started crying. And it was a huge paradigm shifting moment, I think, for both of us. He shared his story of what it was like growing up and living as an adult for decades under cannabis prohibition and the repression and the fear that comes with that. And I was certainly moved. We ended that with a big hug, and I knew immediately that I was right in what I was doing and that I was helping people.
And I think that, it's something that surprised me, and I think on July 1st, it totally surprised the media, because I don't know what people are kind of expecting the average cannabis consumer or user, but it's like people who came out to July 1st, like old hippies, old rednecks, people kind of in our demo in their 30s, like we're more like a 30 plus kind of demo. Sure. And I think that's part of what we try to do is demystify and destigmatize cannabis. And these kind of real stories are huge testament, and it's not like, thankfully, you're not wearing a hidden camera when you go up and make these deliveries.
Sure.
What's kind of been the most surprising, sort of instance, or I guess, maybe back to that point, you mentioned this first, gentleman, what are people asking for, the most? I mean, is it flower, is it cartridges, is it edibles, like a kind of mix, or do you have to talk with them to figure it out first?
If they have questions, we certainly answer any questions. Some people call because they're a cancer patient or they're a veteran with PTSD or some other sort of ailment that they're looking for treatment for. Other people just want something that won't put them to sleep. Mm-hmm. So we are available to answer any questions if you're able to get us on the phone. But yeah, we try to be a resource for them and point them in the right direction.
And so let's talk a little bit about kind of what the response has been from the public, from social media. Because I mean, we look, and when we were promoting this and talking about it, and even in the comments section tonight, I put up a poll and said, if you're somebody who is in your position, would you reveal your name, show your face, and I think a lot of people are sort of offering support, and saying like, thank you for being kind of the first person to do this, and like you said, show that it shouldn't be. We talked about doing this shoot as like a Drugs Inc. style, where it was like masks and voice we have the voice modulator set up. Actually, can we turn on the voice modulator
just so you guys can see? Is it on for me too? We were originally going to do the shoot as a Drugs Inc. style shoot, but thankfully,
okay, we turn it off. Thankfully, we thought this was a more transparent and truthful way to do this. But like,
and I know that my clients are tired of living in the shadows and being afraid. And I sure as hell am.
Yeah.
So.
And I think everybody else, in here and in the comments section, clearly is too. So what kind of feedback are you giving people? What kind of conversations have you had? Let's start with sort of the public. Has it all been, I mean, most of the questions that we're getting asked are like, does he deliver to Barrie or like Keechee or like, who's doing this in Rutland and who's doing this elsewhere? And,
the answer to all those questions is not me. Sorry.
Right. And I think that's where, there is, if we back out and look at this holistically, right? I mean, it's July 16th.
Yeah.
Right. So we're still very early on. And I think that a lot of these questions are, and probably maybe even boundaries are going to be more defined. And I guess I'll use that as a segue to ask, sort of what are your biggest concerns, and sort of what kind of guidance have you gotten? I think a lot of people read the VT Digger, but safety doesn't seem to be a major concern. You're not traveling with a huge amount of cash. You're not carrying more than a legal limit.
Never.
At any point in time. So like, obvious question, what are the concerns and sort of how are you navigating that?
Well, I think one of my biggest concerns for all of this post-legalization business, given that there's not clear guidelines from the state in how businesses like mine should operate, I worry that without a clear guideline that the black market will continue to flourish in Vermont. And I've often said, to parrot the gun control debate talking point, the only solution to a bad guy with a joint is a good guy with a joint. And that good guy is me. And I hope there's other people like me out there that will do the due diligence to check IDs and make sure that if they're out on a delivery, that their gift is in a locked and secured storage unit, that they're making sure that all of their products are free of pesticides. And we should be doing this as a public service for our neighbors, not for personal profit.
Well, and I mean, to that point, you have
not that there's anything wrong with personal profit. We live in a capitalist
God forbid anybody
society,
living in Vermont.
But when I say that, I'm talking about black market greed.
Right.
I'm a registered corporation
Right.
in the state. I'm registered with the tax department. I'm setting aside money for taxes. I want a little bit of every bag that you get to go to building schools, roads, bridges, and funding emergency services and all of the rest. And I hope that anybody out there doing what I'm doing is following that sort of road.
Right. And I think, and that's, and that again, like there are so many other people who are like, I want to do a lounge, and that seems like such a bigger undertaking. But have any of those people contacted you and said like, hey, I'm down in Barrie, can I work with you? I mean, how many people are asking you A, for jobs for dispatch, or B, like delivery?
Quite a bit.
And like what other questions are you getting from within like other interested similar parties?
Well, one of the biggest questions I get is how can I work for you? And I say that one of the quickest ways to work with me is to have known me for 10 years. So that ends that conversation pretty quickly.
Start now.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, a lot of people are just are feeling inspired that they're tasting a type of freedom that they've watched other states in the United States enjoy for quite some time, and and their visit with me is their first interaction with that, and they're tickled pink. I'll tell you.
And that kind of I mean, like on a bigger sort of picture, it kind of resets what is normal and what's expected, right? Because again, like if we're in Portland, Maine last year, if we lived in Maine, we might be calling that delivery service every single week, set it up at 3 p.m. instead of 3 a.m. like
Sure.
we did, but I think it's kind of a new norm. And I think that with legalization, like you said, people expect that in Vermont, you'll have the same rights as you do in Massachusetts and in Maine, and because, it's easy to blame legislators and policymakers, but, frankly, because we're not further along, and I'll remind everybody that Phil Scott vetoed legalization a year earlier, so we could be 1 year further advanced.
Yeah.
That did happen. So
while joking that some of his friends are involved in the black market, and I thought that was extremely hypocritical. And I gotta say, that statement right there, that little joke that he made while saying that he was going to kick the can down the road, is part of the reason that I started this business right on July 1st. Because I think it puts in place a tiered level of freedom in Vermont. You can enjoy your full Vermont rights as long as you're a landowner or a master grower or friends with a master grower. Or you have permission from a third party that can be swayed to deny you your right because of a moral issue. And I think that's unconscionable, and I'm kind of surprised that that was allowed to pass into law without some clearer guidance. Now, I welcome and I wish for clearer guidance from the state as to how businesses like mine can operate responsibly, because that's what I want. I live in this community. I've lived in this community for over 15 years. I'm a father. My son is growing up in this community. I'm your neighbor. Like, I'm trying to make this state better, and you can help me by calling your representatives.
I think that is a beautiful way to put it. And like you said, the denial of rights, and it's reflected with your clientele. Like me, believe it or not, owning co-owning a weed publishing company, not hard for me to find legal weed. Not hard for me to find it in general.
Sure.
I think about somebody, I think about my mom, or I think about somebody's aunt, or somebody who's in their 60s and wants to try this out for arthritis, but doesn't want to go through a dispensary, doesn't want to get on the registry and have their name in the Department of Public Safety. It is really, if you don't own land, if you don't know how to grow, if you don't know somebody who does or has, then what are your options? And why should you have fewer rights than somebody else?
It's really kind of silly.
Yeah, and again, a lot of these people are not mobile and they're not tech savvy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Facebook, like I can't imagine the Facebook messages thing about my parents' generation and how, you know, how they use Facebook. Like, are you getting old people sending you memes now? You know, like, this is yeah.
No, but yeah, I might be hanging out with your grandma more than you are.
I think that's actually maybe correct. And so, have you heard about other, you know, I've heard rumors, and I'm not here to blow up spots. They can come on and discuss themselves. I've heard there are brick and mortar places in Vermont.
I've heard that as well.
Where you can go into a store in you know, Chittenden County and ask about a gifting and a donation program.
But
you
again,
know, so
that's a tiered level of freedom too. Because
Right.
if you look like a lot of my clients, they're not going to admit that they do that because they're going to be more cautious about it, I think.
Well, if you think about somebody, you know, who's using your service, if I think about somebody, you know, like we had one gentleman who came to the booth at the farmer's market, an MD, you know, a doctor, and like there's no chance that he's going to find this on his own, and he doesn't want to be out there asking around,
yeah,
you know, not kind of discreetly,
yeah,
you know, and conspicuously.
Or like I joke with a lot of my clients, I'll deliver to you this time, but next time you have to come to my house and watch me play Xbox for 45 minutes and pretend that we're really tight. I mean, it's kind of silly, but I mean, yeah, as far as people talking to you and asking you about that you wouldn't really expect, I've delivered to 3 sitting state representatives from 3 states in New England.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? So,
And guess what? They were impressed with my protocols.
Right.
And you know, hopefully they'll bring some of the positivity of that experience to their state.
Well, and I think, you know, we're all kind of wondering, you know, how we can turn this energy and this momentum. It's July, so the legislature is not in session again until January. But, you know, what people can do and turn this energy into progress. You know, and talking about contacting your local representatives, share this video. I dare you to share Heady, Vermont on Facebook. You won't do it. You won't sign them up for the newsletter. You won't buy a t-shirt.
Oh, you're so smart.
You won't do it. I dare you, no chance. You don't have it in you. You won't go to the store right now and buy a membership.
Are you looking for a job?
You know, but like, yeah, right? Yeah. Dude, everybody's looking for your job. I talk about it every day with people.
Really?
We've been inundated, you know, and why we're really happy to do this, you know. So I guess, you know, I want to think about a few other sort of questions, like going forward here. You know, you're talking with attorneys. You know, you're keeping tabs on what else is out there. You know, what are sort of the next steps? You know, for you. I mean, I think holding pattern. I know there's a lot that's up in the air all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and that we're all waiting to learn about. But I would remind people also, when we're talking about ways to use this public pressure and what people want and common sense effectively, the Attorney General also is an elected official here. So the Attorney General is running for office. The Attorney General's office, you know, has a open line. I'm not going to share the number tonight, but I would encourage you on social media, send a message, post a comment, you know, and reach out as well, because we know there are conversations ongoing.
Yeah. Right.
And we know that here on July 16th, 2018, things might look different in September 2018. Probably going to look really different July 16th, 2019.
Yeah.
You know, right? So you've got this base of people in kind of this community established. Do you think we're going to see more of these services popping up?
I hope so.
Yourself? Yeah.
I really hope so. It's a needed public service, but like I said before, I hope so as long as they operate responsibly and in a way that benefits their community as a whole. And I also want to reiterate that none of this is going to change unless you not only call your representatives and your elected officials, but you have to be nice. You have to be sober. You have to have valid talking points, and you need to be honest. A lot of this comes from the fact that people were afraid for so long that they didn't share their truth. And so we got this false idea of what the majority was and what the minority was here on this issue. And I think if people step out of the cannabis closet and be proud of it, it's going to be a non-issue pretty quickly.
I think this has been outstanding, and I know that you've only got so much time to respond to people when they reach out to you. We're going to try to get in and respond to all these different comments here and encourage you. You mentioned taxes, which was a big question that people had. You're taking care of that. Sort of your background within the community. So I guess maybe we can debut our new segment.
Sure.
Would you be okay with that? All right.
Yeah.
It's a lot of firsts here tonight. So in honor of your first, I want to debut a brand new segment for people. I want to encourage you can drop some questions in here as well. But brand new segment for you guys. This is something that we've been working on for a long time. It has been in development. It's taken a lot of work to set up. The title of this new segment is called Smoke Your Weed. Ready? Studio audience, let's do it together. 1, 2, 3. Smoke your weed. Okay, undisclosed location, no studio audience. But in honor of the live stream in our new segment, we're going to kick off Smoke Your Weed by smoking your weed.
I brought you a gift, Eli.
What do you know? I got a bowl here.
Okay.
And so, again, brand new segment. We are really, really happy to bring it to you guys. Groundbreaking stuff here.
Here you are, sir.
Thank you very much.
This is our Gorilla Glue number 5.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Now, will you actually, if people request, will you smoke it for them too? Just kidding.
No, I have to drive home.
Right. Yes, exactly. Fortunately,
That's part of being a responsible delivery service as well. You never medicate while you're driving. I've been doing a lot of driving lately, so yeah, not tonight, but I hope you enjoy.
Talk about it. Yeah, well, again, in honor our brand new segment tonight, brought to you by Rolling Flower Vermont and Heady, Vermont, the debut of Smoke Your Weed.
Should we have a drum roll here?
1 week at a time,
Sure.
We're working up. This is the debut. This is only the first segment. So, okay, hold on. One puff. Everybody knows the rules. Yeah, that's weed. All right, cool. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. That was our debut segment of Smoke Your Weed. A huge thank you again to Rolling Flower VT, Andrew Burns,
The heart.
the man behind the social media. Again, leave questions, leave comments. More importantly, register to vote, contact your representatives.
Be a good
get
neighbor.
involved. Be a good neighbor.
That's
Be a
what this
good
is all
neighbor.
about.
Be a good neighbor, live your truth. Beautiful. Thank you to Shawn Cimonetti behind the decks here at our undisclosed location. This was really sick.
Yeah.
Very well done. Much appreciated. Thank all of you for tuning in. More to come on Heady, Vermont. Catch us in person at an upcoming event. Otherwise, we will see you soon. Oh, and stay tuned for next week, next Monday, we are going to feature the Headies. You guys have questions about the Growers Cup. You have a lot of them. And after a lot of time and a lot of research, I think we've got it all figured out. So we are next Monday going to talk about categories, how to enter, how to judge, all that good stuff. Tune in next Monday to the Heady Vermont live stream. Otherwise, stay safe. Have a great week.